Hi guys, this is Brenda with Keenan Kreations, and today I'm going to show you how to create this card using a new stamp set from the 2015-2016 Stampin' Up! Catalog. This image is from a stamp set called You've Got This, and I'm going to be using this flower here and this greeting. We're going to use shimmery white cardstock, 3.5 by 4 3/4. You could also use whisper white. I just like the extra little sparkle that you get with the shimmery white. We're going to ink this image up with Versamark ink, and you're just going to pat the ink across the image. Now before I stamp this on the shimmery white, I want to make sure and use an embossing buddy. This will remove any fingerprints that I've left on the cardstock. That'll help to minimize any excess embossing powder. So I'm going to stamp this in the center but closer to the top so I have room for my greeting at the bottom. There's a lot of detail in the center, so just make sure that you press very firmly on that flower part and then lift that up. Now you'll notice some of the black ink from my stamp transferred to the cardstock. That's not going to show after we emboss it with the white powder. So I have my white embossing powder in a little container. So I like to just tuck this in and kind of push it down, let the powder run over, and I'm going to hold it by the sides and tap off the excess. So I've already heat embossed this with the heat tool, and you can see the white powder is nice and shiny. I'm going to go ahead and stamp the greeting at the bottom. I'm going to use StazOn Jet Black ink, and I'm going to try this out on my grid paper first, just to make sure it's on the block straight. So I'm going to line up the edge of the block to one of the lines on the grid paper and then just stamp that. So now I know that when I go back to my cardstock, as long as I have the edge of the block parallel to the edge of the paper, it doesn't have to line up to the edge of the paper, it just has to be parallel. Then I know my greeting's going to be straight. It has a little bit of a curvy cursive look to it anyway, so if you're a little bit off, I think you're okay. We're going to start with Mint Macaroon. This is a new in color. It's a really light green, and I'm going to use a Sponge Dauber. So I'm going to pat the dauber onto the ink pad, and you can always tap it on your scratch paper to make sure it's not too dark. And I'm going to go in a soft circular motion, and I'm going to be okay if I go outside the lines. So I'm just going to start on one of the leaves. And when you add ink across an embossed image, the ink does not stay on the parts that are embossed. So the technique is called Emboss Resist because the embossing resists the ink. Now once I've got most of the ink on this leaf, I'm going to be really soft outside the line. So I have almost kind of a soft glowing look. And I'm going to use mostly the edge of the dauber rather than the flat part for the stem. And just kind of work your way up. You can always add more ink, but if you get too much ink on here, you can't take it off. So it's better to be too little and go back and add more. Now I've got most of the green ink on the leaves and the stem, so I'm just going to very softly continue the sponging outside of the edges. The next color is Delightful Dijon, and this is a pretty dark yellow, so I want to make sure that it's not too dark when I go to the center of the flower. So I'm just going to tap off on my scratch paper and just very lightly go in the center. So you can see I have the yellow right in the center where I want it, and then I also went outside so I can overlap the next color. Next is Watermelon Wonder, and this is a really dark color too. So again, I'm going to go off to my scratch paper here just to remove some of that ink, and then I'll start on the flower. And just a very, very soft circular motion. Now you can keep repeating this until you get the color as intense as you like. And when most of that ink is off, then you're going to just ever so lightly go outside the edges. And the last thing you're going to do is take a clean paper towel and just lightly remove any excess ink that's left on the embossed flower. Now the basic black cardstock is just slightly larger than this. So this is 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. You'll notice with the embossing, it kind of warps the paper a little bit. So you want to make sure that you're pretty heavy with the adhesive around all the edges. Now to line this up, you're going to hold this up and you're going to line up this side here and these two sides. And I'm not going to press it down until it's just right. So you can check it by setting this last side down lightly. And then if that looks good, I kind of just double check it and then press that down. We're going to use dimensionals on the back. We're going to layer this to mint macaroon cardstock, and this is your standard card size, 8.5 by 5.5, and scored down the middle at 4 1/4. And just take your time and get this nice and centered. For the inside of the card, it measures 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to ink up this flower with Watermelon Wonder, and I'm just going to stamp it right in the corner. Layer this to the inside and add an envelope to match. I hope you enjoyed today's project. For more ideas, you can visit me at KeenanCreations.com. Thanks and have a great day.